Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. You'll have to forgive me if I'm looking a bit messier or sounding a bit raspier than usual. I'm a little sick right now, but it is what it is. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about Persona 5. I recently played Persona 5, the Royal Edition, for the first time. I picked it up on a whim as a little birthday present for myself, and oh my god, did it suck up my life. I have since beaten the game, including the optional third trimester that's included in Royal. It took me about 3 weeks, and in those 3 weeks, I clocked in over 140 hours. Now, if you want to do the math there's 504 hours in 3 weeks. Divide my playtime by 504, and it turns out that I spent well over a quarter of my time just playing Persona 5. So that's a lot of time that could have been put towards other things. So I guess the question is, was it worth it? Story-wise, the game follows a high schooler referred to by the codename Joker, or when he's not being called Joker, he's simply known as him, and his group of friends who band together and form a vigilante group known as the Phantom Thieves, who can travel to this alternate dimension known as the Metaverse, which is essentially formed by the corrupted desires of other individuals. And if a given individual is corrupt enough, then they'll have a place in the Metaverse called a palace. And what the Phantom Thieves do is they sneak into these palaces, steal the treasure within, and in turn that causes the individuals to have a change of heart. They renounce their old ways, confess to their crimes, and all in all, presumably their victims end up having a better life going forward. I'll talk a little more in detail about my thoughts regarding the story later in the video, of course while avoiding major spoilers. But in the meantime, let's talk about everything I hated about this game. Look, I clocked in 140 hours. Clearly I had some fun with the game, but no matter how you look at it, there's some things that you're gonna get very annoyed with during your playthrough. First of all, the Akumura boss fight, if you know, you know. This was the first boss I really had any trouble with. I won't spoil the mechanics of the boss fight, but just know, if it's your first playthrough, it's gonna whoop your ass. I can actually imagine this boss fight being quite fun during a second playthrough where you understand the game mechanics and the gameplay a little more, but the first go around was absolutely miserable, and that's probably the one place where I came really close to quitting. Anyway, my next complaint about the game, there's just not a lot of gameplay outside of the metaverse itself. The metaverse is where all of your battles are going to take place, but you actually spend a significant majority of your time in the real world, where everything just kind of turns into a time management simulator. You're going to be spending most of your days essentially picking which cutscene you want to watch, which is actually a lot more fun than it sounds. But again, you're going to be spending a lot of time in the real world as opposed to the metaverse, where the bulk of the actual gameplay is going to take place, and at points it definitely can drag, just waiting to get your chance to go into battle. And on top of that, there's just a lot of dialogue. Now, there's plenty of games that are pretty much exclusively made up of dialogue boxes, and it works out just fine. But the issue I take with Persona 5 is not that there's necessarily a lot of people that talk, it's that a lot of people talk and then they repeat the same thing a few minutes later. Like, you'll be hanging out with a person and they'll be like, oh my god, this thing just happened. And then they'll call you up later that day being like, oh my god, I still can't believe that happened. And then you'll get together with your group of friends and they'll be like, oh my god, guys, me and this dude, this thing just happened and it was nuts. Given there is a little bit of a point to them repeating the dialogue, like when they do call you later in the day, it's kind of a game of pick the right dialogue option that'll make them happy and connect more with you. But I wish there was just a little more variety. Again, just not rehashing the same points over and over again. The next point isn't necessarily an issue, but more of a preference thing. Persona 5 is very anime. I don't really know how else to describe it, but if you're not a fan of anime, this story probably won't connect with you. And last but not least, there's no way around it. It's a long game. It took me 140 hours. It might take you more or less depending on how much dialogue you skip through, whether or not you do the optional content. But regardless of what your playthrough is like, if you finish the game, you're gonna be clocking in well over 100 hours. If you don't have that kind of free time, that is definitely an issue to consider. Now, that's my list of complaints, but despite all of that, I did really enjoy the game, and this is why. Again, the story is just so charming, and it's so well written and conveyed, whereas a lot of JRPGs stories can turn into just this convoluted mess of working parts. Persona 5 story is actually relatively cohesive and easy to understand. Not that it dumbs its story down, but it's just conveyed in a way that a lot of people will find it appealing. And again, it's very anime, so if you don't like anime, maybe it's not for you, but if you are okay with anime, or especially if you love anime, you're gonna love it. It delves into themes of justice, and if you can have justice even when working outside of the regular norms, outside of the law. And it also questions what freedom looks like and what it means to be your true self. So it gives you a lot of food for thought. I hesitate to jump in and say that it's gonna change your life, but it definitely gave me some things to think about related to myself. And in addition to the main storyline, all of the characters and their subplots are just great. You have an ex-politician whose career was tainted by a bad reputation, and now he's trying to go for re-election in order to genuinely make things right. Or one of your teachers has to take on a very interesting second job in order to pay off a debt. And even though there's not a lot of gameplay while you're exploring these subplots, it's very rewarding to choose who you want to spend your time with and connect more deeply with your favorite characters. Not just in the sense that their stories are interesting, which for the most part they are. I would say that a few of them are kind of stinky, but overall, it's just a lot of fun to pick who you want to spend your time with, and the game rewards you with special powers or perks by connecting with each of the characters. Like for a significant portion of my playthrough, I was sleeping on leveling up my, they call it confidant levels, with the character Ryuji. He's your best friend, the first friend you make in this new high school. But then someone told me that if you level it up enough, you get to auto battle some enemies that were lower than my character's level, and oh my god, it just saved so much time. So even if I didn't find his story to be the most engaging, the rewards that I got for spending time with him just made it worthwhile regardless. Anyway, that's enough about the story. Let's talk a little bit about the gameplay, namely the combat. Persona 5 follows a turn-based combat system, which I'm already a big fan of, but in the game they give you so many options of things that you can do. Of course, you have a basic attack, you have different elemental attacks that characters and enemies can either be weak or resistant to. Each character has a model gun that you can shoot the enemies with, and there's different customizations you can do with that. Each character has a different type of gun, so there's different uses for each character's model gun and how you use them. And there's this whole downing system where if you hit an enemy with a type of attack that they're weak to, then you get to follow up with another attack, or they call it a baton pass. You can pass the follow-up turn to another character and that boosts their next attack. And that whole system, if you're smart with your turns, you can pull off some insane combos. So yeah, the combat is just flashy and a lot of fun. And kind of leading into the combat, another thing that I found a lot of fun was fusing personas. Most characters just have one persona, but the main character that you play as can take on a number of personas. It's kind of like Pokemon, where certain creatures will have a certain set of attacks that they either already have or can unlock if you level them up. So you can catch all of these personas, or you can fuse them together to create a new, stronger persona, and that whole system was just so addicting. I can't tell you how many hours of my playthrough was just spent trying to figure out the different combinations of personas that I could get to create the strongest one with the most resistances and the most powerful and useful attacks. So yeah, I just found the fusion system to be very addicting, and I think that if you haven't played the game already, you'll also find it to be a lot of fun. And last but not least, the game's art style and music is just beautiful. The game's art direction takes on this anime, comic book amalgamation, and it just works really well. It's colorful, it's flashy, and overall just very appealing. And oh my god, the music, the soundtrack is just incredible. I don't know what it is, but I think most games that have lyrics in their background music is very corny. It usually just doesn't work for me, but in this game, they actually pull it off. And I hope you like jazz, because you're gonna be hearing a lot of it. I just love the soundtrack to this game. I can't say this about many games, but this is one that I can actually see myself listening to just while driving, while I'm trying to get something else done. The game is just very stylish, both in its music and its art. So that was everything I liked and or didn't like about my Persona 5 playthrough. So what does that mean for you if you haven't played the game already? Well, before I directly answer that, let me preface it with this. It's not a game for everyone. It's long. A lot of the gameplay isn't actual gameplay, at points it can drag. And even if it is a game that sounds like it's for you, it's definitely gonna annoy you at one point or another. I don't think there's any fan of Persona 5 that can say definitively that it's a perfect game with zero flaws. The fact is that it's gonna get on your nerves at moments, but I think it makes up for that with just the fact that it's a wholly unique experience. From its story, its presentation, its gameplay, it's a game unlike anything else, except for maybe the other Persona games. If you're able to overlook the potential issues that I mentioned, then you're probably gonna love it as much as I did. And if not Persona 5, then definitely the Royal Edition, which has a lot of quality of life improvements and added content. So if you do pick up a version of the game, I highly recommend that one. And yeah, even if I did get annoyed with the game, perhaps more often than I would like to admit, I can confidently say that I did not regret my 100+ hours that I spent with it. So on that note, let me know if you have or haven't played the game. Let me know if you plan on picking it up soon. What is your experience with it? What do you hope to get out of it? And yeah, hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Subscribe. Bye.